How's it, everybody? Welcome to Umpire's Call. My name is Alistair, and today's episode I will be discussing and reviewing the 2020 Formula 1 British Grand Prix World Championship race that was held at Silverstone just this past weekend. Now, I have to be honest with you guys, it was a particularly dull race. When you look at it in its entirety, there wasn't much that really happened until the very end of the race. Just to start off with the qualifying, it was a real shame that we didn't get to see Nico Hülkenberg show his full potential in the Racing Point. Of course, for many of those who would know, Nico Hülkenberg used to race for Renault but now doesn't have a seat. The reason why he was meant to race this weekend is because Sergio Perez had contracted coronavirus, or at least the test that he had taken showed it was positive, and therefore he needed to be quarantined. So what Racing Point did, very sensibly, is they brought in Nico Hülkenberg to race as a teammate to Lance Stroll. And although the qualifying went relatively well for a guy who hasn't been racing for some time, unfortunately when it came to the race itself, they were not able to start his engine for some reason that they weren't aware of, and unfortunately he was not able to even start the race or even leave the pit garage for that matter. Qualifying, of course, was stock standard really for the most part. Again, it was just so disappointing to see Vettel qualify in 10th position in a Ferrari. It is unheard of that a Ferrari with a 4-time Formula World champion, granted he never won any with Ferrari, landed up no higher than 10th. Of course, Charles Leclerc landed up in 3rd row and 4th, which was a very good position for him, considering that he had to drive the socks off of his car just to get in the position in which he did. So needless to say, of course, we had Mercedes and the Red Bull right up at the front, and it was, what we could only really expect as the season has progressed so far. Looking at the race itself, it was just so frustrating to see that the safety car had come out twice in the beginning of the race. There was a total of 12 laps that had been taken away from the race. Let's not forget also that this race was only, I believe, 52 laps long. So there was a total of only 40 laps that was actual proper racing. Now, I'm as much for safety as anybody else, and the marshals are an integral part of the race, and they did absolutely a fantastic job, I thought, during the course of the race, when, of course, they had to remove the damaged race cars. But I really feel the FIA need to find some way of being able to ensure that the marshals can retrieve the cars and make the track safe in a far quicker time. Yes, we know only too well when Jules Bianchi tragically lost his life a few years ago in Suzuka in a wet race track where he just plowed his Formula 1 car into the I don't know what you call it, it's not even a bulldozer, but with a crane on the end. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after the tragic accident. It was very difficult to see that. And I'm all for safety. I don't feel the FIA should compromise that safety in any way for both the drivers and, of course, the marshals. But we really do need to try and find a way or they need to find a way to try and shorten the amount of time that it takes to retrieve a car off the racetrack. Obviously, some of them are very quick depending on the severity of the accident or if the car just broke down. Of course, if there are pieces of carbon fiber all over the racetrack and in the gravel traps or in the runoff area, you need to ensure that those are removed to prevent any damage to the cars themselves or even punctures, which could then further lead to more accidents. But it just was so frustrating to see that. And I mean, the race itself was just so dull. I mean, at the front we had, of course, Hamilton, who I think after the very first lap was really a second or more ahead of Bottas, who was in second. And Bottas himself was more than, I think, 3 seconds in the very beginning, and I think as many as 10 seconds towards the middle race ahead of Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen was then more than 20 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc in 4th place, and then Charles Leclerc was more than, I think, 4 to 5 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz in 5th. And then, of course, we had, Carlos Sainz was ahead of everybody else a few seconds there. So, the race was a little bit entertaining in the beginning. Of course, with the safety car being out so much, it did allow for some cars to claw back positions and some time to be a bit closer to the cars at the front. But the superiority of the Mercedes right now in Formula One, it's actually doesn't make Formula One really that enjoyable anymore, because they are just so amazingly well structured, and their cars are so superior to even the Red Bulls. Forget about the Ferraris. Just forget about the Ferraris. They have not even a chance of getting anywhere within touching distance of the likes, of course, Mercedes and Red Bull. And in all honesty, they may not be better than about the fifth best team right now this season. It's just shocking. So anyway, positions 5, 6, 7, and 8 were only the real, bit of worth watching over the battles between those cars, because everybody else was either too far ahead or too far back, and it was just not entertaining. I mean, as all of you know, of course I do these videos as an avid Formula One fan, and I'm so keen to watch every race every weekend, or at least when the race weekend unfolds. But this one, I found myself even at times during the middle of the race, just my mind wandering, because it was just not entertaining. There was no shots of the guys at the front. Of course, looking at Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen and Leclerc, and even Sainz for that matter, because there was just no racing there. They were too far ahead of anybody else. And at the back, maybe a little bit here and there, but I mean, Raikkonen being stone dead last and not even finishing, and then only the middle of the pack was where the real entertainment was. And I don't even know how Hamilton even enjoys doing Formula One anymore, because he rocks up to a race weekend, almost always finishes qualifying in first. He just does a few laps, he's in first, gets into his race car on the Sunday, drives, lands up being in first, and then gets his, the first place trophy, and he just buggers home. I mean, how can he even enjoy it anymore? It's ridiculous, it's unbelievable. Of course, the very end of the race is where it was most entertaining, because of course we saw both Mercedes and Carlos Sainz and the McLaren's left front tyre just collapse, or I think collapse would be the only best way to put it, really, because of the extreme loads that the cars had to endure during the course of the race, which we know only too well. Silverstone is a very fast track for all the cars, and it's absolutely a brilliant track, goes without saying. But what I have to ask is this question: had the two safety cars not come out when they did, and we didn't have those 12 laps taken away from the racetrack, where do you think the race, how it would have ended, or where the cars would have ended, if they had those extra 12 laps of that load bearing on those tyres? I think that had those 12 laps been added to the tyres, obviously they would have probably collapsed with 10 or 12 laps to go. But it would have then been very, very interesting to see where the race had gone. Of course, the tyre strategies probably would have changed had it not been for those 12 laps, so we may have landed up in the very same position in which the race unfolded. But to have, I think in the second or third last lap of the race, I think it was third or fourth, Valtteri Bottas tyres just completely go, which landed up being from a man who would have absolutely finished in second to finishing in 11th. We then had Carlos Sainz who would have finished realistically in 5th, didn't finish the race, and Hamilton, who was so very, very lucky to have his tyre explode during the course of the last lap, and he was able to limp on 3 wheels to get past the finish line and finish first. And I know Red Bull would be absolutely gutted by the choice that they made, because they decided to go in with, I think, 3 laps to go, put Max Verstappen on the fast tyres, try and get the extra point, and then therefore land up, having, a respectable finish. But of course, because they had made the call when they did, and I don't blame them, because it's a split-second decision, they then, obviously with Hamilton's tyre then giving out, Max Verstappen could have won the race. But because, of course, they didn't know at the time, it didn't work out for them, it ended up being a position where they finished second. So I don't think Red Bull can be too hard on themselves for the decision they made. It was a split-second decision to make, and ultimately it was not the right one, but a second place is much better. Of course, Charles Leclerc did very well to finish in third place. So, of course, it was Hamilton, Verstappen and Leclerc. And, found yourself in a position where Sebastian Vettel could not even compete with the Renaults, the McLarens, the Racing Points to even finish no higher than 10th. It's just unbelievable. And the CEO of Ferrari made it quite clear that up until the year 2022, when the new Formula One regulations and specifications for the cars we'll be driving will come out, Ferrari cannot even expect to compete for race wins. So that means that for the rest of this season, however long it may be, depending on, of course, how the pandemic unfolds during the course of the year, Ferrari will have no chance of competing. The whole of next season, they won't be competing for races, they won't have a car, and only in 2022 will they then have a chance, and who knows how that's going to unfold. Oh, it's ridiculous. I'm so over it. I'm so over how Ferrari are performing. When you look at the days of Michael Schumacher, and of course before then, but particularly in Michael Schumacher's era when he was at Ferrari, it was just unbelievable. The success they had, the bulletproof cars, the speed, the reliability. It was just, I can't even fathom it. It's so hard to comprehend how Ferrari can just fall from grace so hard and so quickly. I mean, yes, it's probably been building up for a few years when they haven't had the same success. I mean, Kimi Raikkonen was the last Formula One world champion for Ferrari. That was in 2007. And we're in 2020 now. Anyway, we'll only have to see in the coming weekend when we have the 70th anniversary of Formula One being held at Silverstone again. So please do tune in for that. Hopefully the weekend will unfold to be a little bit more entertaining when Pirelli will be able to hopefully provide tyres or at least ways for teams to be able to last much longer without tyres exploding towards the very end of the race. Hopefully we won't have nearly as many safety cars, and hopefully Nico Hülkenberg, who is a very good driver, very well respected and liked driver, will have the opportunity to race for Racing Point and prove to not only himself, but well, he doesn't need to prove anything to himself, but to teams like Haas, that drivers like Romain Grosjean do not deserve to be in Formula One. Kevin Magnussen is teetering on the line of not even deserving to be there too, but Romain Grosjean is a horrible Formula One driver. He may do very well in other forms of motorsport, but he doesn't belong there. Nico Hülkenberg deserves to at least drive for a team. He should be at Racing Point, he's that good, which obviously won't happen, but at least be at a team like Haas. So my verdict was a not out for this race, because I did think it was fairly respectable, and hopefully things will then turn out to be better in the next race. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Please remember to hit the like button if you did enjoy it. Please also remember to hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this video and the ones I've posted previously, so that you'll be automatically reminded for all future videos that I'll be posting. Otherwise, guys, have a good day. Cheers.